Alrighty, today we're going to take one of these pieces of plexiglass that I have cut down to a specific size. I believe they're 4 by 2, maybe 4 by 2.5. And then we're going to turn it into a name tag project. For the first step, we're going to take our piece here and we're going to drill it on the drill press. Now, this all kind of depends on your design, but I'm just going to go right in for the corner. So I got a jig here. It's made so it can't lift up. I'm just going to put it into the spot I want to drill. And I'm going to come down and drill. It's important when you're drilling that we don't go too fast with this because it can crack the plexiglass if you go into it too hard. Alright, so the first thing we want to do with this project, possibly after drilling, so you may want to drill it first, you don't have to, but it's to lay out what we want to Dremel in here. So I'm just going to do a quick demo here. I'm going to start with my first letter. I'm going to kind of do a like over. If it's not how I like it, I can always change it, but I'm going to do a T. And try to do my best to line things up here. Do an E. And I'm just using pencil and a stencil here. I'm going to go over and use a C, keeping it lined up. And I'm going to do an H for tech. T-E-C-H. So that's the layout. This is also a good time if there's any areas you want to cut out or you want to get rid of. You could come in and you could get rid of. So like if I wanted to maybe chop a diagonal off this corner, I mark it, and I could mark it here, and I'll show you how to do that later. So got my tech written on here. I got the 2 corners I want to mark off. I already drilled my hole. And the next step would be to either cut or Dremel. So that is really up to you based on what machines are available. Okay, so I've moved the camera off to the side here a little because the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to Dremel. I'm just going to Dremel with a quarter ball bit on here. And I'm just going to turn it on, and I hold it like a pencil when I turn it on. And I'm just going to go here and get where all those letters are. Some tips for the Dremel are you want to go slow at first. You should definitely practice this on a scrap piece. Alright, so this is a take 2. This is a different name tag, but it is engraving the same thing. The first time I did it, all you could see was the Dremel like this. So I'm going to try to be careful and go to the side to give you a better idea of like kind of how to Dremel. Alright, so hopefully that gives you a better idea of how I do my Dremel work. So the next step is we're going to use the blade runner here. And the blade runner has this little guard. And what you want to do is you want to take the guard and lower it onto your stock and then tighten this knob up. That'll keep the guard down to the precise height you need, and it'll keep your piece from bucking. And the blade's in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to feed our piece of material right into the blade, and that should cut it. And it's super loud, so be prepared, but here we go. That'll give me my cut name tag, and once you're all done with this, you can raise the blade when the machine is off, and you can clear out any scraps you made for the garbage. So the next step's twofold. One, we can use it to get this plastic covering off of the plexiglass, which can sometimes be difficult to peel. And two, if we wish to bend our project, this would be the time to do so. So you should wear gloves for this because we're going to use the heat gun. And the heat gun, believe it or not, does get quite hot. So if you just want to first remove this with the heat gun, you just heat it up a little and it should peel quite easily. Nothing too extreme for this part. Once it's heated up a little, it softens up the glue. And once I can get my finger under the corner, sometimes it peels up nice and easily. Might need to put a little more heat into this. But that is the general scheme of things. Here we go. Go back and get those pieces in the middle, but it should peel off nicely. Peeled off. Might have to hit it with the heat gun again. Now, while I'm peeling this, what you want to do is get all this off and decide, do I want to bend it or not? So that's a tough decision. If you want just to be flat like this, that's fine. The next step would be to sand the edges, which is the next step anyway. But if you do not want it to be flat, you will need to use the heat gun again. So I'm just going to need a little more heat gun on the back, and then I will go to the next step. So I'm just going to cut scene. So once you're all sand or cut and you have everything peeled, you can sand the edges. You can really do this before you peel, but if you want nicer edges, we got this emery cloth. You can just come in, sand all your edges up. So I'm going to take a minute to do that, and then when I finish this, I will go on to the next bit, which is bending. All right, so once I've got my whole project sand on the edges to my satisfaction, smooth, no chips, doesn't look dirty from the saw blades. If I want to just go to the last step and do the ink on my engraving, that's fine. If I want to bend it, this is the time. So I'm going to put my piece on here. I'm going to get the gloves. You do have to heat it up quite a bit. When you're heating it up, you got to watch out that you don't overheat it. So using the heat gun, I just go back and do consistent passes back and forth. What I want to do is get this thing about equally warm everywhere. I don't want to focus on one particular spot. And sometimes you'll see it flex in the middle or bend. That is fine. And the goal is, if we can get it heated up just enough, it will be able to flex and bend, which you should definitely wear gloves because it does get very warm. It holds the heat pretty well. Okay, I'm going to test it now, see if it's malleable enough. Perfect. So I'm going to bend it. Kind of want kind of a wave effect here. And I just got to kind of hold it in the shape I want for a few minutes. You can go to a sink and cool it down. but it does not take long. So I'm just going to hold it in that position, and it's very warm underneath the gloves. So if you're not using gloves, you will feel this. Okay, and I can put it down and let it cool. And that's what I'm going to do, and I'll meet you at the next step, which is the markers. So the final step is to add the paint marker, and I feel like doing green, no particular reason. Do be careful with the paint markers. These are the Sharpie ones. They will get everywhere and they do not come out. So you just take the paint marker and you'll notice if you're careful and you go right into the grooves, that does a pretty good job of going right in to where we dremeled. I'm just going to come in here and get all those spots where I dremeled and light it up. Now you can do paint markers on other parts of your design too, that's fine. I'm not going to do that. I've seen people do all sorts of designs. I've seen people kind of trace the edges. So it's whatever you are into. I am just going to stick to my letters. Now, you can do this before you bend, especially if you bend in a way that you think is going to make it difficult to color in. The marker does not seem to be too affected by the heat. So this can be interchangeable with the bending step. Now, we got our thing all colored up and good to go. I'm just going to get the chain, and then we're all finished. So the last part would be taking a small chain, filing it through, hole we drilled, and then attaching it to whatever you may wish to attach it to. Oh, there you go. Tech name tag. Wish me whatever you want. Hope you enjoyed this project.